Ooh, you miss me? I know. Welcome back. So we'll be making an Ankara dress, and we're going to be using a leftover fabric I used from my peplon. I'll be combining it with this white doll face. Okay, so we're going to start our project now. We're going to fold our fabric into two, making sure we're using the right side. So this is the right side of the Ankara fabric, and this is also the wrong part. We're going to fold it into two, and then we'll start our measurements. We'll rule a straight line to mark the starting point. So we'll take ½ inch away from the starting point. This is just for the joining allowance, and from there we'll measure our hip. Our waist to hip measurement is 8 inches. We'll mark 8 inches at that point. And we'll mark the full length, which is 26. We added 1 inch for folding allowance. So we'll go ahead and then mark the horizontal line. We'll mark the hip line. We'll go ahead also and mark the length of the dress. So adjust the camera. So that's the length of the dress. So we'll take our horizontal measurement, our waist measurement divided by 4. We'll mark it at that point. We'll mark 2 inches allowance, one for the dart and the other one for the allowance. Then we'll go ahead and mark our nipple to nipple, which is 4. We'll add ½ inches. We'll mark it at that point. We'll go ahead and divide our hip measurement by 4, and we'll mark it at that point also. We'll also add a 2 inches sewing allowance at the hip point. Then we'll go ahead and subtract 1 inch from the hip measurement, and then we'll mark it at the dress length, the skirt length. We'll add our sewing allowance 2 inch to that point, and then we'll go ahead and draw the lines connecting the length to the hip measurement, and then we're going to connect from the hip measurement down to the waist. Once we're done connecting that, we'll go ahead and cut the skirt, the down part of the dress. We'll be cutting the back part of the down panel. So we'll place the front we just cut on it, keeping 1.5 inch allowance. So we're just adjusting, making sure that our allowance is up to 1.5, and we'll check if that's 1.5. Okay, so we have 1.5. We're going to go ahead and then mark the line for the zipper allowance. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel if you've not subscribed up to this point. So we'll be extending the hip line to the back panel. We're minusing ½ inch from the back panel. This is just to give shape at the back, the butt area, and then we'll mark our 1.5 inch zipper allowance. We are also going to minus ½ inch inward to the waist. This is just to give the back fitting to prevent bulging at the back. Once we're done minusing that, we'll go ahead and add our nipple to nipple at the back, which is 4.5. Once we're done with that, we'll go ahead and mark our zipper allowance 1.5. Remember, we went in by ½ inch. We'll also come down to the hip part and also mark our 1.5 inch. We'll take this down to the dress, the skirt length. So we'll mark this line straight down, connecting the waist to the hip. That's the zip allowance. We're just going to mark it, and we're also going to mark it downward, keeping the ½ inch for the hip part. This is to allow the butt to sit properly. So we're just going to mark that line, and then we'll mark the 1.5 inch for the zipper allowance. Okay, so once we're done, So we're going to mark the slit point from the dress length. So we are taking 11 inches from the dress length, the down part upward. So we're going to mark that 11 inches at that point, and we'll mark our half inches for the allowance at the slit length. So we mark it at that point. Once we're done with that, we're just going to connect the line to that slit point. So that's where our sewing is going to stop. So go ahead and cut the back panel. Once we're done cutting the back panel, we'll go over to upper bodies. So we're marking our starting point for the upper bodies. We folded our fabric into 2. We're going to take out ½ inch. This is just for the join of the shoulder. So once we've marked our ½ inch, we'll take from the shoulder to the bust point, whatever we have. Our bust point is 11. We're going to mark it at that point. Our bust point to on the bust is 14.5, so we'll mark it at that point there. And our under bust to the half length is 17.5. We'll mark it at that point also. So we're going to roll a straight line horizontal. That's the half length. We'll also roll a straight line on the under bust. We'll do the same to the bust point. Once we're done with that, we'll go ahead and take our shoulder measurement. Our shoulder divided by 2, we have 8, so we'll mark it at that point. We're going to come up by our bust point by 1.5. This is to get our chest measurement. So we came up by 1.5 and we marked it at that point. Then we roll a straight line connecting the shoulder to the chest line. Once we're done with that, we are going to take out our neck, and our neck width is 3 inches. We're also going to take our shoulder slope, which is 1 inch, and we'll connect the shoulder slope from the neck to that point. Then we are going to take our tape from the shoulder to the chest measurement. We'll get the middle of that point and we'll mark it there. We are going to come in by ½ inch on that middle, and we'll just curve our armhole that way. So that's our armhole curve. We'll go ahead and take our bust measurement. Our bust circumference divided by 4. We'll mark it at that point there, and then which is 9.5. We're going to mark it at that point, and we'll add a 2 inch allowance. We'll add our 2 inches allowance. So once we're done with that, we are going to also take our under bust circumference divided by 4, and we'll mark our 2 inches allowance. We'll do the same for the half length, that's the waist, and we'll also divide it by 4 and add our 2 inches allowance. Once we're done with that, we're just going to connect it to the chest line, and we roll a line connecting the lines. So once we're done with that, we are also going to mark our neck depth. So our neck depth, we're using a neck depth of 4 inches. So we're just going to connect that. Sorry, our width was 3.5. We're going to connect that to the neck depth, and we're going to make a curve for the neck. So once we're done with the curve, once we're done curving our neck, that's the front neck, we'll go ahead and put our nipple to nipple, which is 4.5, and we'll mark it at that point at the half length. So that's to get our dart. Our dart is 1 inch, so we go ahead and cut out the front bodies. Once we're done cutting out the front bodies, we're just going to place the front on the back panel, leaving 2 inches zip allowance. So we are cutting out the front neck. That's the front neck. We are cutting it out. Once we're done with that, we are going to use the front to trace the back neck, and we are marking a 1.5 inches neck depth for the back. we just cuffed it and we'll cut it out. So this is the back panel. We're just going to open up the zip. We're taking ½ inch from the half length from the waist. We're taking in ½ inch. This is just to prevent the back from bulging. So we're going to connect that ½ inch down to the neck of the back, and we are then marking our 2 inches zipper allowance. Once we're done with that, we are just going to connect the lines with our ruler. So we'll just cut out the excess part of the back. We're going to notch our zipper allowance so that we don't forget that. So that's the upper bodice. So once we are done with this, we are just going to go to our table, iron table. We're going to add our fuse, our stay. We're just going to gum that. Once we're done, we're going to cut out the lining for the down part. This is the front lining. We're just going to cut it off. We'll do the same thing for the back panel. We'll cut out the lining. Once we're done cutting out the back lining, we're just going to cut out the upper bodice lining. Also, we're placing it. We'll put our pins just to prevent it from shifting, and then we're just going to cut across the lines for the lining. We'll do the same for the back panel of the upper bodice. Once we're done, we're just going to sew our back panel so that we can mark the line for the door face. We were going to be adding the door face. So this is it. We've just sewn the zipper allowance. Then we're going to place the front panel of the down part. We are combining with this door face. So we'll go ahead and mark the line. We're just marking a symmetric line of your choice, how you want it. We're just going to mark it at that point. So that's what we've done now. And once we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and bring the back panel. We are going to match the side of the back panel to the front panel so we can connect the line. If you have watched up to this point, please make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell icon so that when we release a video like this, you're going to be the first to know. Thank you very much. So we're connecting the back panel now. We're connecting the asymmetric line on the back panel. We're also going to take the other side, the right side of the back panel. We're going to match it to the other right side of the front panel so that we can get the exact point where we marked at the front side, so that when we sew it, it will give us the same place to match with the door face. So that's what we are connecting. Once we're done connecting that, we're just going to connect the back part very well so that we're going to measure it, the asymmetric line, whatever we have. We're going to connect also. We're going to measure the back line to know how much inches we are going to be cutting from the door face. So we have 24 inches at that point. 27 inches at that point. So we are going to be cutting the door face. We are going to start with our starting points. We'll mark a center point. We'll mark a horizontal line. And I'll be dropping a video how to cut this symmetric flounce. This is a flounce. I'll drop a detailed video how to cut this flounce. If you do not understand it, just watch out for the next video. We'll show how to cut it. So I'm just going ahead and taking a 4 inches round the flounce, and once I'm done with that, I'm just going to cut across the line to get my flounce. It's as easy as that. Please make sure you subscribe so that you can watch the next video on this detailed flounce. Thank you very much. So we're going to cut out the flounce round. Once we're done, this is it. We're going to just measure it to make sure we have up to 27 times 2 for the front and the back flounce. Thank you for watching. If you want to see how I sew this beautiful Ankara gown with this beautiful flounce, make sure you check out our next video. Do subscribe.